pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, I didn't.
The first item on the agenda is 4.01 is public comments on agenda items. The public comment period is a time slot set aside on the agenda for citizens to address the Board of Education. The Open Meetings Law does not require that citizens be allowed to participate and speak at Board of Education meetings other than public hearings. The law specifies that the public has a right to attend board meetings, except for executive sessions. The procedure for public comment is outlined in Board Policy 1230, Citizen Participation. A total of 30 minutes is set aside for public comment at the beginning and end of the meeting. The maximum time allowed for any one speaker is 3 minutes. Public comments at the beginning of the meeting are limited to items on the agenda. Persons who wish to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting must state their name and the specific topic about which they wish to speak. As speakers must limit comments to issues appropriate for public discussion, compliments or complaints about student discipline, specific student issues, or personnel must not be addressed during public comment. Interruption of board discussion is not permitted. In the interest of civility and respect for different points of view, outbursts from the audience, applause, or other types of disturbances or disruptions are not permitted. Under no circumstances will booing be tolerated. The Board of Education recognizes its responsibility to hear and respond to public comment. As stated in Board Policy 1230, the Board is not able to answer questions at the meetings, but welcomes your statements. Any questions from the public should be submitted through the use of the public comment form, which may be obtained online or at the desk with the district clerk. Responses will be provided within 2 business days on the district's public comment responses page so that everyone may receive the information. Is there anyone who wishes to speak at this time? Seeing no one, we will continue to 4.02, communications and announcements received by the Board of Education. Mr. Sloshower? Mrs. Corral? Mr. Caleta? Mr. Lewman?
Just one quick announcement of the Capital Improvement Committee meeting this Wednesday at 10 o'clock at Central Office. All welcome, the public is welcome. So once again, 10 o'clock Wednesday.
Mrs. Goodman? Mr. Rubin?
Thank you, Madam President. First up, I'd like to commend the number of us were at, Mrs. Kellin and myself were at the John Jay High School National Merit Scholarship Finalist Award Ceremony. And forgive me for if I say these names wrong, but I would like to give them public accolades. Karthik Ladalia and Matthew Klein, kudos to them, well earned. We attended the John Jay High School play Mary Poppins, went to the annual Dutchess County Open House, and there was also a meeting there. I find that very informative, and it's open to everybody. Participate in the Long-Term Development Committee, and I'd like to also give it accolades, and I do not know which school this student is. His name is Andrew Yerkes, but he also attends the Dutchess County BOCES, and he was recognized by the Poughkeepsie Arlington Rotary Club for community service, leadership, and concern for others. So congratulations to him as well. Thank you.
I also attended the National Merit Scholarship finalist reception at John Jay High School. Congratulations to them for their hard work. And the Long Range Development Committee meeting. And on Saturday, the BOCES annual meeting and luncheon. Our students who participate in the cooking, culinary program at BOCES are fantastic cooks. We had remarkable
And that reminds
luncheon.
me, some of those students were ours.
Yes, they were. That's why I mentioned it. Some of them are ours and some from other districts. And then attended Mary Poppins at John Jay High School, which was a very fine production. And unfortunately, I also attended the wake of Dodie Simons, who was music teacher and director of elementary music in our district a number of years ago. So we could have a moment of silence, please. .01 Superintendents Report.
Good evening, Madam President. Good evening, Madam President, Board of Education. Good evening, everyone in the audience. First, I'd like to remind everyone that on May 26th, there will be no school for students. Students will not have to attend school on May 26th, Friday, May 26th. I also attended the National Merit Scholar, and I think perhaps it's the opposite of me. On weekends, people don't recognize me because I'm dressed down, but I think now I think one of the students is here, and he's dressed down, so that's why I'm not sure, because I saw him in a tie. Oh, there he goes. Okay, well, why don't you stand up so we can actually give you a nice congratulations. Congratulations once again. With that said, I sound like a broken record, but I say this to the seniors at every Board of Education meeting. You're getting very close to graduation day, and we look forward to honoring you on graduation day. This is the last chapter of your life of being a public school student in education, and soon you will be walking on that stage, and we will be so happy to greet you. Take advantage of these last few months. Please make sure to be safe. Follow the rules. Don't compromise. Don't jeopardize any field trips, activities, or events, or even your ceremony. Do what you have to do and continue to do your schoolwork, and we're extremely proud of you, everyone sitting on the stage. Congratulations once again.
.01 Superintendents Follow Up Preliminary Recommended Budget, Part 3. Update on state aid and preliminary contingency budget.
I don't think you're going to have to move per se, but if you'd like to see the contingency portion, you have it in front of you as well. We were hoping to have a better follow-up for you today, but as you know, those of you who have been watching the news, we've been doing the same, keeping the radio on, watching for emails, and also watching TV to try to figure out what's going on with the budget. And as of today, we have just a little update, and Kristen will share that information with you. So there's not much follow-up to the continued work on the district's recommended budget, but just an explanation from Ms. Crandall, as well as providing you with the portion of the contingency budget.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. I'm sorry. Again, as the superintendent had indicated, we have been watching for any information on New York State aid. As you are aware, we built the superintendent's recommended budget upon the executive proposal as provided by the governor in January of 2017. We were confident that that was the right thing to do because for the last 6 years, New York State has had a budget that was either on time or within a few hours of being on time. So the increase that we're speaking about in the superintendent's recommended budget for the state aid was approximately $679,000. So what we've done is give a comparison, provided a comparison for the Board of Education as to the New York State aid for the last 4 years. The yellow highlights are subject to change because that's based on the governor's proposal at this time, and as we had indicated, that's what the superintendent's budget has been calculated on, pending more information from New York State. But as you can see, New York State aid has not been a consistent increase from year to year for the district. 2016-17 was really something of an anomaly due to the gap elimination adjustment being eliminated. And in 17-18, while we do have a 3.81% increase, the majority of that is related to the capital project work that's been completed and the building aid we'll be receiving, as well as the increased reimbursable aid amounts that we're getting. So the actual increase in foundation aid is $679,221. So what does this lack of a New York State budget mean for Wappingers? And how are we going to continue to plan and provide a budget to the Board of Education for the scheduled approval on the April 18, 2017, because that is the required timeline for us to have that approval done so we can meet all of the requirements for the upcoming budget vote in May. So there are essentially 3 scenarios. The first scenario is that the governor's proposal stands and there's no necessary update to the superintendent's budget. The second scenario is that New York State does not finalize a budget prior to that April date. And if that does not occur, we have to cut the budget by $679,000 in order to remain in compliance with the tax cap. Because based on conversations with the Board of Education as well as their goals, it is not your intention, as far as I understood, and I believe the superintendent is as well, that we are looking to pierce a tax cap. So if we did not make that reduction, we would be potentially piercing a tax cap. Or scenario 3, where the New York State budget is finalized and there's more money that will be available to the district, or it's the same level of funding, but we know for sure by that April 18 date. So we will continue to watch for any and all developments. There are conversations about extenders as of this afternoon, moving the budget, keeping the government operational until possibly the end of May, early into October. So as of this afternoon, that was the most information we had. So we will continue to update the Board of Education as we move through the next couple of days. I don't have any answers either. So as you think of them, possibly, I can't stand here tonight and answer for you, but if you think of them, please email me or the superintendent, and we will definitely start to have that, the continued conversation, but we don't have any answers to be able to provide to you as well today. So what we've decided, we're showing you again, is just the follow-up. This is the superintendent's recommended budget. It's based on the governor's proposal, and it's subject to change. However, this is where we currently stand. We are looking at a 0.95 increase levy to levy based on the governor's proposal, and a 1.63% increase budget to budget that is within the tax cap. Again, this is all the same information we've shared with you in the past. This has not changed. This is just supporting the superintendent's budget. We have the same information. We have not received any emails at budget@wcsdny.org. We continue to share that information out. We are continuing all of our work through the coming week. And this is where we stand with regard to the approval date for both the contingency budget and the general fund budget on April 18, which then leads us to the next presentation for the contingency budget. And again, this contingency budget will change with whatever happens with our state aid package. So the contingency budget is built currently with ideas and concepts and amounts based on the superintendent's recommended budget, which is, again, based on the governor's proposal.
One of the things I've always shared with the staff, and I believe I've shared it in the last few years, is that a contingency budget should never be looked at as something that's doable. It's something that we would have to do and have to live by. but it does really create a disruption. It creates a tremendous disruption to our instructional program and the work that we're doing in the Wappinger Central School District. Therefore, as we review what we're about to share with you regarding the contingency budget, it's always very important to look at the contingency budget as a budget that's disruptive to the educational process.
Again, so this is a preliminary discussion. It's a list of ideas. It actually includes our the reductions listed in the following slides do not even total the total reductions needed. They exceed it. So it's not like a laundry list, but it's just a bunch of ideas that we were just trying to brainstorm, collaborate, and again, none of these decisions will be made lightly. They are very serious decisions and they have significant impact to our district. And it's subject to change. We're going to just keep saying that until we have a New York State budget or we get closer to our approval date. What the superintendent has always done is give you data to be able to make comparisons from year to year. And in 15-16, 16-17, and then 17-18 next to it, we were able to show you what some of the ideas with regard to the contingency budget would be for 17-18. What is mandatory is the equipment. That is the first item that must come out in every single contingent budget as mandated by New York State. We took out any of the new additions that we had added to the budget with regard to staffing, because as the superintendent in the 16-17 budget was able to share the sustainability piece of a budget. That's why there's so much more information in the 16-17 column, because they were not salary related, but in the event they had to be cut, they were not positions and they were not punitive in nature because they were new for the 16-17 budget. It would have been great if we could have it, but if they went away, we never knew what we really lost. So again, we have some contingency budget ideas. We have no confirmation about what our contingency budget will truly look like, and we will make sure that we share that information with you in the coming weeks and days prior to that approval date of April 18th. Thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Root.
Mr. Crandall, I don't know how you sleep at night. I'll tell you, there's got to be nightmares for you. Just my own information, not anything specific to this, but we used $679,221. If, say, as an example, the New York State budget does not pass within the next day or two, that it goes out to, say, July or August or some other point, at the point where that budget is eventually passed, will that entire $679,221 come back to us, or will it be prorated? Do you know?
I do not know the answer to that question, and that's a conversation we're going to continue to have with Questar so that we'll understand it and be able to provide you with the information to make an informed decision.
That's very good. Thank you.
And yes, I have a big bottle of antacids sitting right on my desk.
Mrs. Goodman.
I also heard about budget extenders this afternoon. Do we even know when we're going to know how long those find out when those extenders will be given?
I can tell you based on the information that is shared with us as school district officials, that information is shared out quite quickly. With regard to the status, as of this afternoon, they did not exist. We heard May 31st, we heard October 1st, we heard 16, 17, 17, 18. We really don't know a lot. So once we know, we will share it with you.
Okay. Mr. Lewman?
Just, when you say textbook reduction of $138,000, what exactly does that imply?
That cut, Mr. Lumia, is to get us to the 100% maximization. So we would still be getting dollar for dollar. As to the details, we're still working on those it's basically to be as efficient as possible so that we still would maintain the revenue maximization for the textbook aid.
I understand that, but what textbooks are you thinking of eliminating? I understand we get 8 on textbooks, but
That's a discussion at the administration level. We're still working through it.
I could share some of that. So as Kristen Crandall did share right now, in terms of getting the 100% max, what we did was we added to our initiatives with social studies, science, classroom, library, so on and so forth. So we would really have to consider, after replacing all of, let's say, sometimes anywhere up to 10% of already existing books that get damaged and lost, and in addition to what other additional textbooks may be ordered from curriculum instruction to new courses, etc., then after that we would have to really shave and look at a percentage increase into the other items. So if we were looking at 20 books per classroom, we may be looking at 12 books per classroom.
Mr. Caleta, did you have any questions? Okay. Mr. Sloshow? Mrs. Karan?
Just to follow up what Mr. Rubin said, even though we might get that money back in, let's say, June, July, August, that's water under the bridge, because already the budget was already passed. So there's nothing you can do about reinstating these programs, correct?
We'll get that confirmed by Questcar.
Yes, and then be able to answer that question for you.
We rather.
We can't speak to program at this time.
I have a question. Since they passed a budget extender, does that mean extending it into the new year at the rate that we got last year, that we got in the previous year, or how does it work?
Well, we haven't seen the details, so I don't want to speak to it out loud.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Because if they don't take into account inflation, our costs keep going up, and if they don't increase our aid at all, in effect, it means we have to cut. Isn't that correct?
We have a cut because of state aid, so that's what the cut would be, is what we're
Right.
looking at right now.
Right. Thank you. Mrs. Goodman.
Have we been in touch with any other school? Have we been in touch with any other school districts to see how they're handling the situation?
Not yet. Still too new.
Right.
Mr. Sloshow.
We're following last year's tax cap, correct?
We're following
Well,
last
we
year's
can't
state
exceed
aid.
state aid based on last year's
Has
cap.
nothing to
I'm
do
sorry,
with-
based on,
nothing to
not
do
tax
with
cap, I'm
tax
sorry,
cap.
based on last year's state aid cap. Thank you.
We're waiting to see.
Well, That's
Yep.
happens, thank you.
That's what we're following. You're
Yes.
right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Crandall, Mr. Cavallone. 7.01 consent agenda resolution. Is there anyone who has any item to remove from the consent agenda? Mr. Sloshow.
Item 7.10, item 1 only.
Anyone else?
Resolved that the Board of Education does approve the following consent agenda items as stated: 7.02, 7.03, 7.04, 7.05, 7.06, 7.07, 7.08, 7.09, 7.10 except for item 1, and 7.11.
Do we have a motion? Mr. Lumia, second. Mrs. Karat. All those in favor? Unanimous. 7.10, number 1.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby accept the following donation as stated. Correct me if I'm wrong on this one. The monetary RCK Outback fundraiser, $780. Donor WCSD Community, is that the one? Okay.
Motion? We need a motion. Mr. Sloshow, second. Mr. Lumia, discussion. Mr. Sloshow.
Just want a clarification. Is that referencing the PBIS fundraiser that was in our weekly memo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Mr. Caleta, Mr. Lewman, Mrs. Goodman, Mr. Rubin, Mrs. Karat, Mrs. Kellen, opposed? Mr. Slowshower? (8.01) Approval of revised Smart Schools Bond Act Implementation Plan Number 3.
Excuse me, Mrs. Kelly.
Mr. Caleta.
Do we have to vote on the rest of these donations? We just isolated
Yes.
the one.
We
Right.
voted on.
So we had voted on all the others.
It all goes together.
Okay.
Chart.
Okay, that's fine.
Whereas the Board of Education approved the Smart Schools Bond Act Implementation Plan Number 3 on November 7, 2016. And whereas the Office of Educational Management Services of the New York State Education Department has deemed that the radios requested in the plan are not consistent with the guidance for high-tech security projects under the Smart Schools Bond Act, and therefore are not eligible for funding under the Smart Schools Bond Act. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wappingers Board of Education hereby approves the Smart Schools Bond Act Implementation Plan Number 3 as revised.
Do we have a motion? Mrs. Karat, second. Mrs. Goodman, discussion. Mr. Lewman.
Just a quick question. In looking at this document, there was no response. Was there a reason for that?
You can answer.
I heard part of that. The document is just simply a template. Yeah, it's just there's a template that outlines that you have to go through for every category, and so we're only filling out now the learning technology or the instructional technology category. Everything else is no response.
Mr. Slowshower.
Mr. Lakima, if you wouldn't mind, just for the members of the board that are not part of the committee, if you could just explain to them why New York State is not allowing this as part of our request.
They didn't give us an answer that was terribly, clear. They, the one person who helps us fill the plan, she's tremendously helpful to us. She said that she understands our frustration with their inability to approve it. It's just something that they've agreed as in their own group not to cover in terms of technology supported under this program. So we were surprised that something as basic as hardware relating to security like radios would be, that they wouldn't cover it. And they'll do telephones, but they won't do radios. So it's just strange.
Since if we feel that this is a necessary expenditure, where would we be then trying to pay for it? Would it be under the capital improvement, or where would it come?
Yeah, there's a couple of places we can certainly think of for that, but the recent rejection so new, we haven't really developed a backup plan for.
And how much was that part of the plan?
The total was $200,200, and that was going to be for a lot of new handsets themselves, but as well as the repeaters. The repeaters would be the devices that would allow us to talk across buildings. And if you remember a while ago, I talked about when this plan first came about, one of our repeaters sits on that one mountain in Fishkill that displays the illuminated cross every year for the holidays, and that repeater is going to come down soon because the owner of that tower said he's taking the tower down, and he forgot that we even used it. So kind of interesting. So we need to come up with something to supplement some of these devices, because it's my understanding that in certain areas the communication is not that great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Unanimous. 8.0, thank you, Mr. Lokima. 8.02, approval of a projected cost for Smart Schools Bond Act Implementation Plan Number 2.
Whereas the Board of Education approved the Smart Schools Bond Act Implementation Plan Number 2 on August 15, 2016, at a project cost of $1,200,000, and whereas the estimates to add vestibules to existing lobbies or to redesign main entrances to accommodate the addition of vestibules to all schools in the Wappingers Central School District is now projected at a total cost of $1,337,224. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the revised total project cost in the amount of $1,337,224 for the Smart Schools Bond Act Implementation Plan Number 2 as stated.
We have a motion. Mr. Sloshower, second. Mr. Caleta, discussion. Mr. Sloshower.
Mr. Lakima, if you could just confirm, since this plan has approved or not approved as of yet?
Not approved.
Okay, so we just going to submit a revised?
Yeah, we couldn't even submit the initial plan yet because they needed such specific details as to the construction of these vestibules. We had to actually go through the architects first. But they said that this type of expenditure is basically a slam dunk, rubber stamp. They do vestibules, they're sure of it, so we went ahead with the architects.
Okay. Thank you. You read my mind.
Okay. Mr. Lewman.
I suppose it's not approved by the state, then we have to come up with $137,000, I guess?
No, they basically promised that it would be approved by the state. They said they do vestibules, that's no problem, that's covered. And so we were very careful in how we asked that before we went ahead. The only expenditures to date that we would have even encumbered by now would be any type of planning work that the architects have come up with. That's not the actual additional cost. The additional cost came from the estimated difference. When we first told you about this plan, the architect said, without really looking at too much of the site work, $1.2 million is a safe estimate. When they went out to do the site work, they found that at both Evans and Van Wyck, their original concept of putting a vestibule into the main lobby was not feasible because it blocked certain egresses. So it was better for them to build the vestibule outside, but that would require additional site work like footings and stuff, which obviously costs more money. So that's how it that extra cost was them doing the site work and realizing what it would really take to put those vestibules in place.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All those in favor? Unanimous. 9.01. Are there any amendments to the agenda or additions? All right, seeing none. 10.01, comments from the public. The same rules apply as at the beginning of the meeting, but this time you may speak about any item that has to do with district business, even if it's not on tonight's agenda.
Put it up.
Hello, my name is Marie Johnson. I'm a mom and I'm also serving on one of the committees. I'm here about a transportation situation, which actually goes with communications. On the new budget, I'm trying to find out where the allotment for new buses is going to be, because when we go to the two-tier plan, we're going to need to add buses, and also for the vans for the special needs children. Because right now it's already stressed, and when you start cramming more buses, I believe we're going to start getting shortages on that. And then also there's been a lot of issues with communication from transportation, and I'm wondering if there's any way we can address that.
Hi, excuse me, specific problems, you can talk with me at the end of the meeting. I'll be happy to see if we can't resolve your problems.
Okay. Also, one other thing that I had questions about, which is part of the budget issue that might be coming across, is at this time we're outsourcing some of the busing, and would that be something that gets cut if we don't get the New York State budget approval? And if so, what would we do for those children? Is something that I'm looking to try and find out on. Okay?
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Lewman, second? Mrs. Goodman, all in favor? Unanimous.